So after the pure orgasmic climax of the last 3 songs, we move on to disc 2 of the story. And after the last 3 songs, I'm expecting some sheer fire from this next part.
Syryn, wicked beast of the abyss, with snake's tail and just man's face.
What we get instead is an interlude track, because the song wouldn't be necessary for getting on a Chinese sex toy with a face of Tom Hanks. I assume. This is so funny though. This is the exact same album that features a nearly 3-minute song about opening gates. I can see your priorities are in order with this one. Next up, 10 Modes of Damnation, which tackles fraud, the 8th circle of hell. The song starts off with an acoustic guitar riff straight from the land of 80s metal ballads before eventually unleashing hell about a minute in. And one thing I do notice here is that this sounds very different from the last disc. The last one was more of a traditional heavy metal sound, something along the lines of Judas Priest or Iron Maiden supported by an entire orchestra. Here, this sounds like if Eddie Van Halen joined a biker gang in which Ghost Rider was the leader. And I don't mean the comics version either, I mean the Nick Cage one. That's the kind of territory we're dealing with here. And honestly, I can't tell which one I prefer. All I know is that this is different, and it doesn't suck, which for now I'm gonna call a win in my books. And that's just instrumentally speaking. Lyrically, this is as, if not more descriptive than last time. Ew, why did God create a circle that can be described as a very violent 2 girls 1 cup video? By the way, does that make sense to any of you? If not, look it up afterwards, and remember, it's only effective viewing if your kids watch too. Anyways, halfway through the song, we get an awesome solo that just builds and builds into—
When at last from Circe I departed, and with zeal set sail for lands uncharted.
Who the fuck? Again. So this is Ulysses, played by Frederick Pollock, and, well—
No. Definitely no. Positively no. Decidedly no.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the Ulysses chant. In fact, I'll even go as far as saying this is probably the album's lowest point, to me personally. Which, okay, doesn't say a whole lot considering the god-tier metal we've heard so far, but this really did go down quickly. You see, this interlude has what I call Syryn syndrome. If you don't know what I mean, let me break it down for you. Back in 2020, a power metal band out of Alberta called Syryn released an album called Beyond the Depths. As a musical experience, it was fine, speaking purely on the music, but the album had every other track, and I do mean every other track, as an interlude. And I know why they did that. I feel I know what their intention was at least. They wanted to build up the concept and atmosphere in a way they felt they couldn't do with the music. The problem is the way they were put together and spread out all over the album, they actually had the opposite effect. They pushed you out of the experience more than they pulled you in. And as a result, it felt more like an audio engineer was flexing his producing skills, while some random voice actor got really into his power persona.
Where's me rum?
Look, I do go into a bit more detail about my thoughts about the album on themetalrobot.com, which you can read down below, but basically, to sum it up, the Ulysses chant has the same problem. The music we've more or less gotten used to transitioning into the interlude was really not that good. It had me questioning what happened more than anything. Actually, come to think of it, the Ulysses chant has Syryn syndrome worse than Syryn. Say what you want about Beyond the Depths, but at least you can take the interludes out of the album's playlist and just play the music as the full album experience. But the Ulysses chant is in the direct middle of 10 modes. The nearly 4-minute interlude is the sole reason the track is over 10 minutes long. So unless you're willing to commit listener sin and edit the audio file in Audacity, you're kinda stuck with listening to a dead pirate talk about how he died out on an island that looks a lot like a layered cake. Now I wanna be clear here, because something tells me that some schmuck in the comments is gonna call me a pink-sniffing twat muffin for this, so let me be clear about this part. I'm not questioning Frederick's performance or the sound design. For what it is, both were very good. And I'm also not questioning the importance of Dante's interaction with Ulysses. I'm sure it's important, but I never read the poem, so how the hell would I know? The big problem that I have here is that the interlude killed the momentum the album had going for it, and in its current state, it actually doesn't fit with the rest of the song, in my opinion at least. Like, could this not have been a separate track? You have an entire second disc worth of space, why not use it? And even if that wasn't possible, was a musical accompaniment not possible? Because you have an orchestra that you can use. I mean, sure, you could easily say, well, I just wanted things to be more held back, a bit more subdued. Okay, fine. But the orchestra is way more dynamic than distorted guitars. There's no real reason you couldn't have used a more subdued orchestra to help keep the momentum going, or at least prevent it from grinding to a halt. In my opinion, that would have made more sense to do it like that. It may not be the perfect solution, and every solution comes with its own draws, but I would have preferred that over 4 minutes of the new Inferno podcast, Storytime with Ulysses.
Are you traversing the underworld and have no time to kill?
You're listening to Storytime with Ulysses.
Subscribe wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
Okay, actually that does sound kind of cool, but not on a metal album. This in the middle of a metal album. Okay, prog's not even that crazy. Right? Right? You're not laughing, am I right? It doesn't help that even bringing 10 modes back for a reprisal immediately afterwards couldn't get the momentum back to full power, but I digress. So Ulysses, you don't happen to have a spare pair of pants, do you? I kinda need one now. Honestly, that's my fault. I should have expected that the first time. With the sound design tricks used on the album, how did I not see demon trolls coming? But it's kind of funny how it's also an effective way to have human interaction if you're an introvert.
Hey, thanks for coming. How was the traffic?
But okay, the song once again does a fantastic job of getting me in the mood of the song and helping the album regain momentum after Ulysses hit the brakes to dry hump it. Also, the song does great painting a mental image of where we are almost too well. It's just another example to prove this was not written by a metal guy. A proper metal musician would have said, let's adapt Inferno, and then wrote 20 Metallica riffs, chugged 20 cans of Blue Ribbon, and passed out in his own vomit. This was made by an orchestrator with care and precision. Like mentioned, this dude is a great arranger, not just with metal instrumentation, but also with the orchestration, and especially the choir. I love that so much. When the choir gets a chorus line or two, it just sounds so fucking cool. First in the midway of life's journey, and now here. I'm getting chills just thinking about it. Wait, no, that's actually just my window being left open again. God damn it, I should close it before I hit record. Fuck, 1 second. God damn, Canadian winters are just the worst. Side note, I like the fact that Filippo is getting a chance to show off how good of a keyboard player he actually is. Though I am curious with how that sounds, what synth patch is that? Because until I get an answer, I'm just gonna call it C-3PO and R2's Evening Getaway. What, they argue like a married couple? Might as well make it a reality. Moving on to Cochitis the Ice Terror, the 9th and final circle of hell, treachery. Proving what many believe to be true the past couple of years, hell has frozen over. But it actually starts off kinda cool. Pun intended. You see, the acoustic guitar riff has a nice shimmer to it that also feels dirty at the same time. Add the sound design and the eventual addition of the choir, and we get a sound of a satanic cult in Siberia. And I fucking love that. And when the metal instrumentation asserts itself, it gets even cooler. Pun intended again. You see, it keeps up with the tone and atmosphere while also creating another layer of ice by allowing it to continue the heavy metal tinge this album has been keeping up, but also allowing for a trait that not many people bring up when it comes to the heavy metal genre. It's catchy as hell. I can't stop with the puns. But that's been a bit of a theme with this album. It's grand in scope and has no problem getting very dark, but the riffs, the beat, and the vocals can also be very infectious. Speaking of not that, cannibalism.
I made my forlorn flesh direct, groping in my woeful prison. I desire so much to eat that the hunger overcame the pain.
Yeah, Dante, you might want to step back away from Hannibal Lecter over here before we have any mishaps with your open-toed shoes. Behold, The devil can play the violin! Come on, are you surprised? Who do you think taught Lindsey Sterling how to play? You don't get that good without a little divine intervention. Yes, folks, this is the main event. The center of hell where lies the King of Darkness. I present to thee the devil himself, the being whose only hope was teenage girls on Twitter with a hashtag Tom Ellis. Wait, no, wrong guy. Sorry, this whole multiverse stuff is just so exhausting. Lucifer! And of course, much like most of the songs on disc 2, it seems not much detail is really being shared here. I mean, I know it's probably not necessary to go into a lot of detail with this song, but I do find it funny how the song is basically just,
Hey, Satan, figured we'd check in. Look, I brought a friend and a funny nightcap with me to watch you be a lucicle for a few minutes. Okay, bye. Oh, I forgot to mention how much I hate flying!
After that, we get into the B section of the song, finding our way out of hell and into a spot lower than hell, because even Lucy isn't below. The Wiggles. Nah, I'm just kidding. The song keeps going with the band trying to recreate Metropolis Part 1. Then ends with an epic choir, then ending with the narrator coming back and reciting something in Italian, I'm not entirely sure. And then ending with what I'm guessing is a tease for Purgatorio. And if so, I am intrigued. And with that, we are finally done with the second disc and thus done with the entire double album. One thing that's made very clear about this album is that a lot of care went into making it. Oscar claims to have spent years on this album, and after what I heard, I can't argue with the timeline. This wasn't made over a coffee break at a local Starbucks like a degenerate. This was made with years of time spent on making the album as perfect as possible. From every note in the composition, every arrangement choice, every sound effect was thought out to a T. I mean, sure, I still have my issues with 10 notes in the Ulysses chant, but, sitting through almost 4 minutes of not so good compared to over 90 minutes of climax-inducing god-tier heavy metal, it's a minor nitpick in the grand scheme of things. That being said, there is one thing that I've been waiting to talk about for fucking months. Jesus, I'm not doing this again. While this was a well thought out album and an expertly crafted masterpiece, there's just so goddamn much of it. Yeah, you notice how this video was split up into 2 parts? I usually try to avoid doing that when I can and contain the album review into one video, but given that part 1 was over 20 minutes long, I had to for my own sanity. It's possibly one of the longest videos on my channel, second only to the 10 up-and-coming bands videos. And like I mentioned in that first part, this was almost guaranteed. Double albums can get bloated, and while you still needed every second of this album to be the way it was, that doesn't automatically mean that this entire thing wasn't overwhelming. Look, the fact is, 17 tracks is a lot to go through in a single sitting, especially in this case, where even 12 tracks was a lot. I mean, it's well worth it if you have the time, but you'd be lucky to take in even a fraction of this gargantuan album on a single listen. It's just that monstrous. But overall, while the album can be very overwhelming for the casual listener, for others with a larger diet, it's an album that will take you on a journey that, as far as I can tell, remains faithful to the original source material. Sure, it can feel a bit hard to follow in places, and it helps infinitely more if you at least understand the original story. Great sound design and genius composing and arranging more than make up for those particular gaps. So if you have around 96 minutes to kill, definitely pick this one up and dive headfirst to the depths of the underworld. 14.5 out of 15, because I'm too tired to give a shit. The ratings on my show are jokes anyways. Just fucking take the rating and just let me sleep for days. Alright, that was Signum Draconis' Inferno. If you want more symphonic prog music or symphonic metal in general, check out my reaction to Epica's Unchained Utopia Omega Alive video. Also hit the like button and click subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you in the mosh pit next time. Have a good night.